I definitely found a lot of the advice I got I didn't find very useful. I guess I felt like I did need to prove myself and do the opposite to what everyone wanted me to do and still show that it could be successful. It's a really emotional journey to go on as a founder, kind of letting go of the company being your baby. It was quite lonely, yes. That's a question I've been thinking about a lot because...
On today's episode of The Brief, we've got Dan Hully. Dan is a serial entrepreneur. He started multiple businesses while at PwC and then left to build and sell RORA. Dan shares everything about his exit experience, how it was different to what he thought it would be. We talk about how AI is going to impact people-based businesses in the future and how Dan manages himself. We get straight into it by talking about how Dan's feeling immediately post-exit, the feeling of loss, how money's changed it, and everything else.
Or is your baby, right? Like I know Sam took over as that CEO role. It was really yours. Like, how do you feel about how it's going on into its next stage? Do you feel like it's going to continue to have, like, I guess, the beautiful DNA that you built, like being the forefront of FinOps for like startups who want to do the work at the edge of finance? Is that going to continue? How do you feel about it?
Yeah, it's a really good question. And I think definitely it's a really emotional journey to go on as a founder, kind of letting go of the company being your baby. I think one of the reasons I looked at selling so carefully is because I felt that the relationship that the business and I had with each other was perhaps no longer the right one for the future. I always felt energized by doing things differently, coming up with creative solutions, being a little bit controversial and sometimes doing things that shouldn't work, but making them work anyway. And I felt like that was exactly what the business needed at an early stage. But as we got bigger and more complex and had more people and more clients, I started to notice that what the business needed from me wasn't that. It needed much more predictability, ability, proper management and proper structure. And that I had to kind of fall into that role, but that didn't necessarily make me happy because it made me feel quite stifled. Like I didn't have a lot of autonomy to be creative and do all those different things. So I guess the business and I grew in different directions. And it was really, really hard to actually step back and acknowledge that because you always think, something's going wrong. If I can just change something, if I can change myself, if I can change them. So it's almost a bit like a relationship in that sense where I had to kind of acknowledge that we'd grown in different directions and it probably would be more successful owned by someone else than it would be by me. But yeah, I absolutely feel really, really optimistic about RORA in general because the management team and the wider team is phenomenal. And definitely kind of fractional finance and FinOps more broadly. I think that's a really good growth area as well. And yeah, sad not to be more directly involved, but also excited about looking at some other things.
Okay, that sparks a lot of thoughts. So the first one is maybe to I guess not challenge, but like an idea that came to me there is you said like you're that one who can see around the corners and think about things differently, think about the counterintuitive things. Is now not the time that RORA and FinOps and accounting in generally needs that more than ever? Like AI is coming, like they're saying the agents are going to do everything. You built a people-based business. Like that, it's really blurry to everyone. Does that not need you more than ever?
Maybe it does. I think it needs the stability, the maturity, and the structure more than it needs that. Because even just following the same model, there's a really good growth trajectory ahead of it. And there's a responsibility to the client and the clients and the people that we have to deliver for them and give them what they need in a stable environment rather than shaking things up with huge pivots every 6 months. So that's the first part of the answer. The second part is, you're right, it does need someone to take that long-term look. And that was also one of my drivers for looking at a sale, because we did a little offsite here in Milton Keynes, the business capital of the UK. I'll just see if I can throw that in without being charged. And we talked about what kind of structural changes we need to make to make our model work really well, and also to position ourselves really well to benefit from AI and automation. And actually, what we landed on was we need to introduce more complementary services, more fixed services. So we've got these kind of fractional scopes that typically a client will start off small, they'll get really big, and then they'll drop off. And then maybe a year later, they'll have another gap, they'll come in, and then they'll drop off. And what we really wanted to do was build a layer that just operates consistently. So we're always in the loop, we're always in the conversation, we're always involved in the data, we're always providing value and insight and triggering new conversations. And the way we wanted to do that was by introducing a statutory account service, by introducing a payroll service. So that was what I thought RORA really needed, independently of what I wanted to do. And I even started working on those products, but I just found that my heart wasn't in it. I felt like I've got no reason to think I can build a better payroll service than anyone else, really. I'm not a developer, I'm not a technologist, and I have to admit my heart wasn't really in it. And at that point, we started having a few conversations with potential acquirers, and I looked at AAB in particular and looked at their track record for delivering all of those services that I was working on and thought, why am I doing this the hard way when they're already doing a fantastic job of that? And there's such a clear logic for how we could slot in and get a lot of benefits for both sides.
Awesome. I mean, it all seems like a huge success. Like, so how would you advise me and walk me through it? If I'm running a firm, I've built it up to just over 7 figures of revenue, and I'm thinking about potential exit. Like, how did you go about starting those conversations? You said like you liked AAB. Like, what did you like about them? How did you evaluate things? We could start there.
Yeah, good question. I don't know if it's quite different in every sector. I definitely found a lot of the advice I got I didn't find very useful. So everyone advised me to use a advisory firm. Everyone advised me to work really hard on like a long-term forecast and a really good IM, which is kind of like a slide deck of you selling the vision for your business. They advised me to form like a really tight, regimented process, almost a bit like an auction to get everyone involved. And as I got into it, I ended up doing the opposite of all of those things, which is maybe says more about me than the process. But yeah, I found that using advisors, like the amount they would charge relative to the value they add at this sort of deal size, I honestly couldn't see the case for it. Yeah, they walked me through the steps they would go through, and I thought there's nothing here that a junior accountant can't do quite well. No one looked at, I built a really long forecast. None of the buyers looked at it. They all looked at multiples of adjusted EBITDA. I think that's obviously different for a VC-backed startup to more of a looking at like a private equity sale. No one really looked at the IM that closely that I spent months working on. I tried to do a little bit of an organized process, but it didn't really apply so much because most of the buyers we were looking at were acquiring several finance and accounting businesses at the same time. So one more or one less, it was quite hard to build up a lot of FOMO and that kind of thing in that sector. What it comes down to is the same as anything else in business, really just taking the time to meet people, talk to them, ask them what they want, be honest about what you've got and what you want. And when I tried to kind of play the game, it always backfired and blew up in my face. And when I just went and met people and was really honest with them, that's when it really worked out. So my experience was don't overpay for advisors, don't try and be too clever and just be yourself. But whether that works every time, I have no idea.
That's awesome. What was the process like generally? So like looking back, it feels like you've surely it wasn't completely fluid. I've heard that these acquisitions can be really stressful. What was it all like?
Yeah, it was definitely not the case. It wasn't emotionally clean for me because, as we alluded to, you feel so emotionally invested in the business. It's also a bit like selling a house in that nothing is guaranteed until the final paperwork is done. But unlike selling a house, there's only, say, 5 people who would ever be interested in buying it. So there's a lot of uncertainty. there's you're going and having lots of different conversations every day that give you totally different visions for your future. So you might go and meet one advisor and they'll say, oh, you can get this amazing figure for your business. You'll definitely get it. And you walk away thinking, oh my God, I'm going to be a gazillionaire. And then the next day you have a meeting with a buyer and they say, this business is utter garbage. Nobody's going to buy it. And you walk away thinking, oh my God, it's never going to work out. So there were lots of ups and downs. And I went back and forth a few times as well in my own head. Is this the right thing? Is this not the right thing? And really, it was only once it was all done and committed that I felt committed in my own mind, to be honest. There was always that element of, oh, am I making a mistake here? Am I making a mistake? And I think that's perhaps normal and inevitable for a transaction of this size. And yeah, there's obviously a few like more mechanical elements to work through as well. Like the due diligence was probably you can't talk about any specifics, but it took a long time and took a lot of work. So I'd say definitely don't underestimate the amount of time and effort that needs to go into that on the selling side. I did underestimate it, and it took me a lot of time.
So looking back on it, when you started, like, are you happy with the outcome of RORA?
Yeah, that's a question I've been thinking about a lot, because people often say to me, oh, congratulations on the sale, you must be so happy. And that always kind of strikes me as a weird question, because happiness isn't the dominant feeling. Again, I don't know if that's just more one for me to deal with my therapist, but I think it's much more complex than that. There's definitely a sense of pride and contentment about the result that we got, but equally, there's a big sense of loss as well. I really miss that period where I had my dream role, where I could be this kind of maverick and do the unexpected and it would pay off. And if I could have my choice, I would still be doing that today. But I found that it just wasn't the right thing anymore. And yeah, I found that it did feel, like I said before, a bit more like a breakup, like we'd gone in different directions and it needed something different and someone different to me. So there's definitely a pride in where we got to, and obviously having the money is really, really great, and it gives you a sense of confidence that I can do it and come out the other side, albeit definitely feeling pretty battered and bruised. But there's also a sense of loss as well for that future I imagined for myself, for that like thing that was such a big part of your life. And it's difficult to go from building a team that you really love and being in the thick of that every day, and that sense of purpose and sense of importance, where everything's spinning around you and there's so much adrenaline. It is hard to go from that to suddenly quiet. And it gives you a lot of time to ask yourself questions and spend time with yourself, which is a good opportunity to have, but it's hard as well. It's certainly not just high fives and pats on the back and champagne every day.
From the outside in, like I definitely look to you as like extremely admirably. I like looked up to you massively. Like I'd started on a graduate scheme at one of the big four. I literally remember first coming across your profile, and the way you spoke about your experience was very like contrarian. It wasn't about like the group think. It was about sitting down and independently thinking about how you found that experience and accordingly what you wanted to do next. We also start our careers with like views of money. We join these partnerships and we hear about how much partners earn, X amount of pounds a year, X amount of pounds of income tax a year. How's it felt now you've had an exit? Like, has it changed your views on money? There's a famous tweet storm from Naval Ravikant, How to Get Rich Without Getting Lucky. At the end of it, he says, when you get there, you'll be surprised with how it feels. Dan, you've got there. I want to understand now, like, how's it changed your perspective on money?
Firstly, you're far too kind. Thank you very much. Has my perspective on money changed? Well, I don't know, because I always set out my objectives as have fun, make a difference, and get rich, in that order. So get rich was my third objective. And about a year or so ago, so I'm a member of like a small founder group, which has been a fantastic thing for me. But they challenged me to say, your third objective is get rich. What does that actually mean? So I went away and thought about what does being rich mean to me. And to me, it means having enough money that you don't have to do anything you don't want to do. It's all about freedom rather than buying material possessions. And I realized at that point when I answered that I was already rich because I knew that if I wanted to step back, I wouldn't need to get a job right away. I could just do whatever I wanted to do. So I was rich before I sold by my own metric, which is admittedly a very low bar and has become a bit higher now I've got a baby. And I'm rich afterwards. So has it changed anything? Not really.
Cool. Dan, so you ran a people-based business and now you're going on to consult people who are running people-based businesses. This all feels very people-centric.
Yeah.
Some are saying the economy is going into an agent-centric world. How do you think about that? Are people-centric businesses still going to be viable? Will humans still have economic value in the future? Tom Blomfield recently, over the last period of months, has said that income tax is going to be eradicated. Humans will have no economic value. What do you think about
that? Yeah, I mean, first of all, it's definitely a question that's above my pay grade. I think his interpretation relies on the logic that there's a finite number of jobs, and if an agent's doing a job, that means the person won't be doing a job. Whereas my logic is more, growth creates growth. It's not like a finite pie. The pie just gets bigger as the economy grows and more businesses service more businesses doing more things. Whether there's still a role for people-based businesses long term, like 20, 30 years in the future, I wouldn't venture to say. Short term, I think it's a fantastic time because I think people were already moving away from the traditional full-time salaried, everyone signs the same contract, Monday to Friday, 9 to 5 in the office. That was already dying before COVID, and then COVID accelerated it, and now this is accelerating it. Some of the changes made by this government have accelerated it as well, bringing in employment protections. I think it's from 6 months now compared to 2 years. It was originally going to be on day one, and increasing national insurance. I think people are moving away from the traditional 9 to 5, do your job for 10 years, and both sides, both employers and employees, want flexibility, they want variety, they want to make an impact quickly. And I think that's a really, really strong opportunity for businesses that work around that flexible staffing model. So I see it as a really good growth area over a 5-year horizon. Whether it is over a 50-year horizon, I think I'll have to hold off from answering that.
Yeah. How are you using AI yourself? Are you using it like you're posting on LinkedIn now a lot? Or sorry, continuing to post on LinkedIn a lot? Like across the acquisition, like through the DD, there must have been a lot of documents to be provided, a lot of analysis and different presentations to do there. Keen to understand like how are you using it in a work style setting?
I don't use it for LinkedIn. I find often it makes like the first 70% of a task way faster, but the last 30% way slower. And writing is one of those ones where I quite enjoy it and I think I can do it quite fast. So sometimes I'll use it for prompts or idea generation, but I don't use it for writing. I do use it a lot in the background for analysis. It's been really good of like analyzing new industries to look at, which is really exciting. Like the kind of thing before, if you want to look at, like I've been looking into healthcare a lot at the moment. And before, if you wanted to learn about a sector like that, you just had to knock on enough doors and have enough conversations and piece it together. Whereas now it can just pull together so much information. So that really accelerates that early stage of learning about a new sector. I use it a lot for kind of decision fatigue stuff. So all of those like 20 small decisions you have to make over the course of a day. Should I do X or Y? Should I buy this dishwasher or that dishwasher? Where it doesn't really matter, but you still have to make a decision. I quite like just asking it, what should I do? X reasons, Y reasons, and don't always go with it, but it just helps. I didn't use it a lot during the sale process, to be honest. because all of the data was in our systems and it was just a case of knowing where to find it and how to present it, and didn't really want it to be really complicated. And again, we needed it to be 100% correct because it was going to be trawled over through due diligence. So you don't want to use anything where you have to go and triple check it yourself in case there's hallucinations. So yeah, the main reason I'm using it is as a sort of assistant to talk to as I'm making little small decisions throughout the day.
Cool. Can we talk a bit about the Big Four?
Yeah, absolutely.
So I joined a graduate scheme in the Big Four. I thought it was the most important thing to do to get into the Big Four. I had an awesome time. I joined with loads of mates in a peer group. It was like another round of university. Would you advise someone now to go into the Big Four? Is it the old way of doing accounting, or is there a newer way to do it? Yeah, what's your take?
It's a tough one. I think in real terms, you get paid a lot less now than you did in the past. Potentially, I'm a little bit less optimistic on the quality of the training as well. Like, I don't think the training has really moved forward with the pace of technology. Both the formal exams with the accountancy training bodies, which I think are really 20 years out of date. And there's a little bit of attempt to update them. And there are some people there doing some really great work, but I think it's an uphill struggle. The job, assuming you're doing auditing large companies as well, I'm not sure how relevant that is for learning about other businesses. But as you said, what you do get is a really great social experience, which I think is not to be sniffed at. Actually, you don't get that many experiences like that in life. And a really good network. That's also really valuable. I'm still in touch with a lot of people from my old team in PwC, and they've gone on to do amazing jobs. And it's fantastic to have that as a resource to call upon. And it is still a really good piece of kind of career capital to have on your CV. It's really nice to have a logo everyone recognizes on your CV. I think that's worth a lot as well. In terms of alternative routes, I think now you can learn finance directly in a startup. We had some people on our team who were self-taught, which shows that it's possible to do that. You don't need to have the qualification. A few people did SEMA whilst working in a startup as well, and I think you will learn more that way, but you'll probably come out of it with, I don't know. I think there is still something in terms of the prestige of a big logo, unfortunately. So if you want to be really meritocratic and learn as much as you can, as quickly as you can, I'd say go and work in a startup and you'll sink or swim really fast. If you want to play it a little bit more safe and have that corporate background to fall back upon, I'd say the Big Four approach is still a great way to go.
And so they're all cutting their graduate schemes, like numbers cutting in half. I think they have a bit of a hiring crisis. They don't know how many people they need to hire. They have a confusion on the junior role. They have no idea what the job description should be. Is there a place for juniors to enter the Big Four? That's where we trained all of the people who are currently CFOs and partners. How are we going to train the future ones?
Yeah, I don't know. I would love to think that the fractional sector can take up that slack. I get why they're not sure about how many people to hire because they're worried about predicting the future. And that's where I see these more flexible fractional models coming in, giving that extra flexibility on the corporate side and then more variety for the individuals. So I would love to see companies like RORA introduce a grad scheme and a training scheme. It was always something I wanted to do while I was there, but we never managed to get it to the top of the to-do list. So I think there's big opportunity to go in that way. And I'm still optimistic that there are routes for people to make their way into the profession. I think the 3-year grad scheme was always very artificial. Does it need to be 3 years? No, it could probably be. You could probably get the same level of skills within 9 or 12 months, to be honest. So yeah, I think it's obviously a tough time to be a graduate right now, but there are still good opportunities out there.
So let's say RORA get onto doing a grad scheme for moving into fractional roles. And yeah, as we get many more businesses, hopefully it's there's so many more things we can build with AI. We're going to have these businesses growing and scaling at different rates. And we need fractional finance, but we're also going to have AI native ERPs like Rillet, Light, etc. what's going to be the role of the FinOps individual?
I don't know 5 or 10 years out because things are changing so quickly. But right now, I think there's a huge role. It's great to have the innovation of these AI native ERPs, but actually, all of the ones I've used, when you're actually using them on a day-to-day basis, 90% of what you're doing is exactly the same thing. I think now more than ever, we need people at the intersection between finance, operations, and technology. People who know how accounting has to work with the double entries and have got that hard skill about how VAT has to be recorded, but who can also navigate which systems should be set up and have a conversation about how the data gets into those systems and out of them, and can also go and support the other aspects of the business. I think that skill set is more important than ever before, really. And I don't see that going away anytime soon. It'll be interesting to see how that develops with more kind of agentic AI in the future, and whether someone can really design like a workflow optimization tool that can automate all of those really tricky, really unique workflows that every business has. And I'm definitely keeping an eye on that, but I haven't seen anything get that close just yet.
Cool. Okay, so we need loads of really smart financial engineers who understand the accounting but can also interact with the systems, understand how they work, so that when things go wrong, when they have to like take control of the steering wheel, they can.
Yeah. I mean, I can't speak for what society needs, but I can say that I can definitely sell a lot of those people.
There's not many accountants who are entrepreneurs.
Hmm.
Are you? What's different about you? Why do you think you had that entrepreneurial spirit, but then also went to work in an accounting firm and do your ACA as well? What, like, I've
Are
not
there
seen it.
I wouldn't be surprised if you look at entrepreneurs by background, are there not lots of accountants? I would be surprised if actually they're quite well represented. I don't know. I haven't got the data.
I would be interested to look through like UK acquisitions, but also global acquisitions, and the percentage of the founding team who were chartered accountants. My guess it would be quite low.
Okay. Yeah, I've got no idea.
But like, that's my guess.
So the question is, why go from accounting into starting a business, or?
No, what is it specifically about you? I really don't know many ACAs who are entrepreneurial. Like, I think a lot of people attracted to these big grad schemes want stable pay. They want job security, which is the opposite of being a founder. Your pay is completely unstable, and you have no job security. But you seemingly
I would
picked both.
it goes really well with being a founder, stable pay and job security, because you get that first for 3 years, then you be a founder, and it just de-risks it so much. I think it's a great combination. I also can't call myself an ACA anymore, unfortunately. I've resigned my membership. But no, I think the two go great together. And I think a lot of people go into those grad schemes because they're really interested in learning how businesses work as well. And obviously, there's going to be a correlation between them and people who are interested in starting a business themselves. Yeah, there's a little bit of like the golden handcuffs thing. There's definitely a risk aversion thing with accountants. There's like a tendency to always assume the worst. But yeah, I think the combination works really well.
Have you seen many examples of people go through all the exams and then start businesses?
Not loads. No.
You and one, I can think of one other individual who has set up a business called scan.com. They left KPMG, they did their ACA there. But yeah, you and him are the only two successful founders I can think of.
Well, there's definitely a lot who have started accounting businesses.
Yes.
That's all I've done, really. I'm excited to do something in a totally different sector next, but I can't say I'm really done any more or any less than all of those people starting accounting firms. It's just a slightly different model.
I disagree. It's a whole new business. Like, it didn't exist before. You've not set up like an accounting firm and rinse and repeated. Like, you clearly have that entrepreneurial like you tried to set up like a rucksack business, right?
Sort of, yeah. That's very
and
generous.
do you know what I mean? Like you're definitely a founder, Dan, at heart. Like you've not become an accountant and set up an accounting firm because you were really good at it. You've created a whole new thing.
That's very kind of you to say. I mean, when I set it up, it was pretty much an accounting. It was basically the same as every outsourced CFO and bookkeeping service. It was like a fixed pay a certain amount each month, have a meeting with me, and then the accounting's done behind the scenes. And then one of my early clients said, "Oh, please, could we just have someone in our team for 2 days a week and then a senior person to supervise them?" And initially I said, "No, that's not how it works." And then the next week I said, "I've had a great idea. You should have someone in your team for 2 days a week." So yeah, that I can't even claim the idea. It was their idea. I just gave them what they wanted.
So is that how it started? So you onboarded some of the clients and did the accounting in the background,
yeah.
And then you started. You placed your first finance manager, and then how did it go from there?
That client, Kit Offices, they're one of the most successful real estate startups in London, and they told us to do it. And initially, I thought it was a stupid idea, but then I went away and I thought about it, and it just clicked. And then I went back to all of our existing clients and said, "This is how we work now." And about 30% of them said, "Well, that's not what we want. We're no longer interested." And the other 70% said, "That sounds amazing. I'd like to have more time." And it just went from there.
How big was, and it was Quantico at this point, right?
Yeah.
How big was the team? Like, was your co-founder there at that point, and any others?
Yeah, it was Juvan was there, and probably three or four others. Pretty small.
And were you offshoring a lot of the operations at that point?
Yes, yeah, because when it was the outsourced CFO, it was all about you get one meeting from someone in the UK, and most of the accounts are done by someone in India, but supervised by me. And that works really well.
What happened before Quantico? So, like, what were your other ventures and escapades? How did they go?
Yeah, what else was there? Yeah, so I did the bicycle pannier bag business. So when I worked at PwC, I always cycled around London, and I usually had a rucksack, and then I had a bit of a sweaty back, or I'd have like a bicycle pannier bag, but they were all designed to be like super high vis, really practical, but look really scruffy. So I designed one that looked like a briefcase, but it was also really waterproof and clipped onto the back of a bike. And then I went to some factories in China and got some prototypes made up, paid someone to like turn my sketch design into a proper graphical computer-aided design file. And I got an initial run of 50 of them and managed to sell them through a Shopify store. And then to take it to the next level, it was going to be like get 500 or 5,000 made. And I just thought, this isn't the business model for me, really. I don't back myself to do it, and I don't want to end up with 5,000 bags in my flat. And when I
But you sold the bags.
I sold the first one.
You sold the 50.
Yeah. I've got a couple in my loft, yeah, just in case I need to go back to that idea. I don't think they're ever coming out of the loft. Then when I initially left PwC, I set up a dashboarding business. Because I was in the like startup team at PwC, and we were in the really unfortunate position there where we were very, very restricted with how we could share data with clients. So we used Tableau, but we weren't allowed to give people live views. So we were literally like printing it to PDF. Then I was printing a piece of paper to take to meetings, which I just thought was such a silly way of doing things. But clients were still quite impressed by them. So I thought, oh, great, I'll just provide like a live dashboard that brings in operational financial data. Again, it just wasn't a business model that played to my strengths. And also, I quickly learned that people didn't want a live dashboard of their financial data because small businesses' financial data is usually out of date and messy. And what they really wanted was someone to come and tidy it up. So RORA evolved quite neatly out of that. I think those are the main things I've done.
It must be quite like going through all of those bits and those ideas. It sounds like the first two were alone. Like it must have been quite lonely. Did you have like mentors, advisors, or people you looked up to through this time?
It was quite lonely, yeah. So when I did Blackfish, that was the bicycle pannier bag business, I was working at PwC 4 days a week and doing that 1 day a week. So I was pretty busy the rest of the time. When I was doing Quantico, it was really lonely, yeah. There's a lot of like founder networks and that kind of thing. I joined like a founder, it was the NatWest Accelerator thing I joined at that point. So that was nice just to hang out with other people at similar stages, trying to do new things. The early days of Quantico were quite tough. But on the flip side, when I started the finance side, I had really, really good traction. So I kind of knew it was going somewhere. And as soon as you get the traction, that attracts people in. And I'd kind of looked for a co-founder before starting, but hadn't found anyone I thought was really serious. But then I looked again after getting that traction and had a lot better conversations. I didn't have any mentors. My dad is a successful business person, so that definitely very different types of businesses, but definitely kind of showed me like it's possible and gave me a confidence to try things. And more recently, yeah, I've joined a group of founders, and we meet up like a few times a year and do a mini retreat, and that's been really, really amazing in terms of learning about how to run a business, but probably more so just the emotional side of running a business, which is really overlooked a lot of the time, I think, and probably the hardest part.
Yeah. Can you share anything on that thread, like stress or managing yourself, managing your emotional state that's worked for you? Like there's tons of people running accounting firms out there, often by themselves, and they're just drowning.
Yeah. I don't think there's any off-the-shelf advice that will work for everyone.
What worked for you, Dan?
Yeah. I think a lot of people start businesses for a mixture of healthy and unhealthy reasons. And being aware of that is a really good starting point. Like a lot of people feel like they've got a chip on their shoulder or they need to prove something. For me, I had a real resentment of being told what to do, and I didn't want anyone else to tell me what to do. And yeah, I guess I felt like I did need to prove myself and do the opposite to what everyone wanted me to do and still show that it could be successful. But then after selling now, I look back on a lot of that pressure I put on myself. It was never, whatever we achieved, it was never good enough. I always wanted to grow faster, to have more clients and more people. And I look back now and I think, why did I put so much pressure on myself and so much pressure on the people around me just to be slightly bigger than we were the month before? Like, who was I trying to impress with that? And I think going into a new business this year, I hope I'm going to be a lot more aware of like, and do it for the joy of doing it and the impact I want to have, rather than like these silly pressures about just being bigger than a competitor or bigger than we were the month before, which I think at the end of the day isn't as important as you think it is at the time.
Do you think it's those pressures though that drive it? Like, would have RORA got to where it is and got to the scale it got to without those monthly pressures?
I think so, yeah. I think often the extra pressure doesn't actually generate extra results. I think it just makes you more angry and more stressed and more difficult to work with. Obviously, passion does help, but I think the passion can come from a healthy place of I'm doing this because I love it and because I believe in it, rather than an unhealthy place of if I don't achieve this, I'm not good enough, we're not good enough, we need to do it. I think the pressure can also really cloud your judgment. I found that I was getting into cycles of kind of over optimism and then over negativity. So I'd launch a new project or hire some new people and think, this is amazing, we're going to take over the world. And then 3 months later, I'd be so burnt out and I think, why am I working so hard? No one's keeping up with me. And it's because I was in such a rush. I wasn't delegating properly. And then I'd fall back and be really quiet and withdrawn. And people would step up because I was nowhere to be seen, but there'd be a lack of organization. Then I'd come around and do the same thing again. And I think it would have been better for everyone if I just didn't put that extra pressure on myself and I was a bit more balanced.
Do you get stressed, and like how do you manage it?
Yeah. I don't have a cure for stress. Yeah, I think you're going to get stressed doing this job. The best thing I've done is probably like joining this founders group. That's been amazing just for realizing how much business owners are all just going through the same few problems over and over again. And just because it is quite a lonely job, just realizing you're not on your own. A lot of other people are doing the same thing. And just acknowledging it's not just an intellectually really challenging job. It's also okay to have all these big emotions around it, like feel really physically angry when someone's let you down, or really depressed when you've hit a target, or really overjoyed when something great has happened. That's part of it, and that's normal. And it's about kind of recognizing that those emotions are there and they don't define you. They aren't you. They're just there and they're present. I journal and meditate as well, and that helps for me. I don't think I've got anything that people wouldn't have heard lots of times before.
Everyone seems to struggle with it, so that's just the reason I ask is sometimes maybe it's like reaffirming or hearing the same things we've heard before from like a source we trust or something. That's where it resonates. Like obviously the trite advice is the right one, but it needs to click.
Yeah, I guess. I think there's a certain amount of environmental stress that you can't avoid. It's going to be there. Actually, that's one thing I read recently that was quite useful. It was the 4 strategies of coping with difficult scenarios, and that was quite a useful framework. Although I'm now not going to remember them. So one was like solution based, so solving the problem, but it was acknowledging that often you can't actually do that. A second one was emotional based, so it's dealing with the emotions that come out of having the problem. So that would be more kind of meditating or going for a walk or listening to some music or whatever helps you to feel more emotionally centered. Another one is support based, so asking for help and getting people, even just sharing it, whether that's someone else in the team, whether it's talking through with a partner or a friend or even a therapist. And then the fourth one is distraction or avoidant based coping, which when you do it too heavily, obviously is a bad thing, but actually a small amount of it is quite healthy. And it's just like knowing when to put a problem down and say, I'm just going to ignore this for a weekend. If you ignore a problem like for months, it's probably going to build up, but ignoring it for a period of time is a very healthy thing to do. And that framework is something I've come back to a few times, but I hadn't seen anywhere else beforehand. So maybe that's something I can share.
Yeah, nice. Yeah, I think Elon has like a video game habit that he'll do to take his mind off things, and then normally the problem solves itself when he comes back. Dan, socials and a personal brand. So thinking both to helping people who are in companies and looking to create a brand for themselves, or they've got a vision of wanting to step away from that company, but don't feel like anyone knows who they are. And then also for firm owners who are struggling to ultimately develop business and they want more people to have heard about their service. You've got a great brand online. You're really authentic. You have real consistency in your content. And it comes off really like, and speaking to you now, like I can hear that same voice in your writing. Do you have advice for sharing, even like practically, like cadence and getting up and doing it? Grace Hardy talked about a social avatar for the people you want to reach. What's your advice?
Again, this seems to be a theme for me. The kind of traditional advice I've found doesn't work for me, and I kind of do the opposite. So the traditional advice on LinkedIn is define a niche that you're the expert in and give people genuinely valuable content in that niche that demonstrates your expertise, right? So if you're in finance, you should do posts about interesting and informative things in finance, educating people, like edutainment. That's the advice. Every time I try and do that, it feels really inauthentic and nobody reads it. So what I do is just write about whatever I'm thinking about that day or what I've been doing. And sometimes also no one reads it, but sometimes they do. And I think it's well worth the effort. I definitely advise anyone building, I think people-based business to business businesses in general, it's really, really worth the effort. Again, whether LinkedIn will still be a really important channel 5 years in the future, I don't know. But right now, I think it definitely is. So yeah, my advice to people is don't follow the formula. Don't over obsess about the perfect time of day or what the content should look like. If you feel like you've got something interesting on your mind to say, just say it. And don't worry if it's rubbish, because that's the great thing about the algorithm. If it's rubbish, nobody sees it. If it's great, loads of people see it. So it's kind of self-filtering. You don't need to filter yourself. Just let the algorithm filter for you.
That's awesome. Cool. Okay. Last one is would you do it any differently? Like how you left PwC, what you thought about then through to now. What would you do differently?
I don't know. Probably, but it is what it is, isn't it? You can't go back and change the past. Yeah, who can say how things would have turned out? There are definitely things I look back now on as mistakes, but those are the mistakes that got me to where I am today. So, I don't know if it's a helpful way of looking at it. It's just the journey I had to go on. I think that's where I'm at in my mind at the moment. If I think too much about all the mistakes, it will get me down too much. So, I think you can't overemphasize on doing things differently. You've got to just walk the path you're on, and there's not really a right way or a wrong way to go, is there? You just go the way that feels right in the moment and trust that it will make sense looking back.
Cool. Dan, I was so excited for what you're going to do next.